Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
I'm here to save the day. I'm here to save the day.
Soon I will be invincible. Because comics. Welcome to Because Comics. This is episode 22. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host, the Rocketeering Mike Christensen.
Woo! Yeah, I get to be a Rocketeer.
You do.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I know.
Jay.
What is your first mission? As you're like a newly appointed Rocketeer, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
What is the vetting process to become a Rocketeer?
Mostly, it's an accident. See, what happens is basically you find a rocket pack and a helmet. You fight Nazis and Timothy Dalton.
Okay.
And then you're just sort of in it. You're in it to win it at that point.
Now, does Timothy Dalton know he's part of the vetting process, or is he just kind of going through life and people with jetpacks keep coming up to him and just beating him?
I'd like to think at this point he knows, but he definitely doesn't telegraph. You
Right.
know, he plays it straight. He knows.
You know, he's a good actor, so he's committed at this point.
He knows the audience. Yeah, he knows that he can't, like, look, man, if we're showing up on the set of Penny Dreadful to fight him, he's like, guys, just give me a second. This does happen.
Put the cameras away. This happens every now and then. All right, let's do this.
Josh Hartnett's like, do you want some help, buddy? No, I have this, son.
This is what Timothy Dalton does. Fights random men with rocket packs.
Oh, man.
Oh,
if only.
geez.
You know what? I would believe
You know what? Before this, guys, let's for a moment just live in a universe where Timothy Dalton constantly, for no explanation whatsoever, fights men in rocket packs.
Just on the set of that Doctor Who episode he's in, just when they're recording lines for Toy Story 3, he's like, hang on, guys, just give me a second.
I gotta do this real quick. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. All right, guys. Well, as we do with each episode, we kick things off with our polls.
Which is the comics we're reading every week, and we talk about them every other week, which is when we have episodes. Jay, what are you reading?
My poll for you guys is gonna be Batman. Now, Batman is, it's a big comic, right?
Sure.
I mean, Batman's got a billion titles spinning off of him at all times. Batman Eternal, Batman and Robin, Batman and Friends, Batman Goes to the Baker Shop.
I believe all of these.
I'm sure DC has any way they can get more Batman titles.
But you have, Batgirl, Catwoman,
Exactly.
Nightwing.
There's a big...
Grayson, rather.
Right, Grayson now. There's a big Bat family around Batman. And guys, I have to say, if I haven't said it already, Batman is like my all-time favorite superhero, and I've loved and read his comics for years, and don't want to throw in Batman anytime just because it's like, oh, of course Batman, like he's a staple, about Batman.
Yeah, you wanted to hold off on doing Batman.
I wanted to hold off on doing Batman just because it's like, he's out there and there's all these other great comics. But guys, I've been following Scott Snyder's run of Batman now since he's come onto the scene, and he did Court of Owls, which was amazing.
Fantastic.
Loved it. It was like, of recent, it's probably my favorite Batman story and reintroduction of that character with a great new villain. I mean, to come back from your first run on Batman and just bring out this whole new villain, and it's awesome.
He did the same thing with Detective Comics right before that with Nightwing and Jim Gordon Jr. Fantastic comic.
He pulled a random character that nobody remembered and was like, I'm going to bring Jim Gordon Jr. back and just make him a villain, essentially.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So with this, now, I'm not talking about Court of Owls. I'm not even talking about Death of Family, which followed that. I'm not talking about Zero Year, which followed after that, which was this big event where basically Scott Snyder got the rights, essentially, to rewrite Batman's origin for New 52.
The green light to do his own version.
Even Scott Snyder was like, guys, I love Year One, Frank Miller Year One. I don't want to touch this, but it's just like, you can do this. You can rewrite, you can do 0 Year. So we're not even going to get into that. What I want to talk to you guys about is the current run on Batman called Batman Endgame. So it's happening right now. In fact, this Wednesday, when this episode drops, the penultimate issue to Endgame is going to drop on Wednesday, and you guys can go pick it up. But the reason why I bring this up is because of all the different stories, they've got a lot of weight to them, right? 0 Year is his restart. Death of a Family is this huge thing about Joker and stuff. Endgame is, without getting into any spoilers, is just really fun and exciting, and the reason I want to bring it up is because it takes a pretty big villain, a Batman villain, and really changes the status quo of this villain's relationship with Batman. So for a while, Batman's had a pretty good status quo with his villains. A lot of some of these status quos have been established, from the 90s, even with like the animated cartoon show that said a lot of statements about these characters.
It kind of boiled them down to the essentials. And
how they reflect Batman quite well in their different ways. Well, this run currently on Batman kind of changes exactly how a villain approaches Batman and a relationship in a huge, terrifying way, and almost takes the villain to a whole nother level, especially with one of the most recent issues. It's pretty terrifying, exciting, and really fun. And there's a lot of great Batman stories out there, but this is like a great one just to drop into just for fun's sake. And just to give you guys the inciting incident of Batman Endgame is the first issue opens, the city of Gotham is being evacuated. There's
always a good start.
Always a good start, which is, you can have big stuff happening, but it's basically there's smoke just emanating out from the center of the city. Well, this smoke is emanating out because it seems like there's some kind of attack happening. Somebody's dropped like a chemical weapon, right? You think? Well, it turns out Batman's actually has a protocol where he releases this gas in the center of the city to evacuate people in case of something horrible happening. Like, he has done this to evacuate everyone because he knows whatever's happening in the center of the city can get really, really bad.
And needs to get people out of the city.
And needs to get them out of the city. So what's the easiest way? Scare them with what could be like a chemical attack, essentially. People run out, the city is vacant. Pretty good plan,
That's
Batman.
really smart.
It really smart.
That's using Gotham against itself,
exactly.
in a way.
I mean...
Or
Batman,
to help itself, really.
And Scott Snyder's great of reinventing and digging deeper into the lore of Gotham and Batman's even own mythology and relationship with Gotham and being kind of one and the same. So great start.
Yeah.
But the reason why he's doing this, not to get too far into it, is because he's battling a super dangerous threat in the center of the city. He's in the city, in the center, in a huge mech battle suit, and he's just like ready to go. And who is he fighting? He's fighting the Justice League.
Oh, okay.
Now, this has been done before
Yeah.
many times. Starfish aliens have leached onto them, but something else is making them fight him. And at this point, they are vicious.
Yeah.
It is exciting and visceral and terrifying to see how these Justice League characters, completely ripped of their humanity and maybe just fueled with bloodlust or whatever it is just sent after their enemies, how terrifying they can be.
Yeah.
And without going any further, who's behind it, what it's leading to, guys, Batman Endgame, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, when we started the podcast and we talked about what comics we were going to talk about on the air, I remember you saying something like, if they're not reading Batman, there's not going to be much we can say to make them read Batman.
Exactly.
Unless something big comes along,
Right.
in which case you kind of got to talk about it.
And the big thing is, not, even just this big setup of the Justice League and Batman and this death match in the center of the city, that's not even the big thing I'm talking about. That's not even the big status quo change of the villain.
Oh.
That comes later into this arc, and it's terrifying, exciting, different. It's just, I really recommend it. It's really fun, and who knows where it's going to go at this point.
Very cool.
All right, Mike, so what's your pull for this episode?
My pull is an image comic called Tooth and Claw. The first issue is called Tooth and Claw. The second issue, the title has been changed to Autumnlands Tooth and Claw.
Oh.
The reason for that, Kurt Busiek, it's written by Kurt Busiek, who I talked about in one of our Christmas episodes, who wrote Superman's Secret Identity.
Okay.
And it's drawn by Benjamin Dewey. Kurt Busiek pretty much came out and said that somebody missed a copyright check.
Really?
So they had to change it from Tooth and Claw to something else. So it's Autumnlands.
So Tooth and Claw, there's some other comic or some other story out there.
Something else
that.
called that. But Autumnlands Tooth and Claw is what you're looking for on the stands. There's 2 issues as of the time we're recording. It has gorgeous art. That's the first thing I have to say. It's beautiful. This really fantastic, almost painted style. But it's about this world where our main character is sort of Dog Man. And he lives on this floating city with a bunch of animal people and dog people, and they're...
He's a dog man?
Yeah, he's basically a
anthropomorphized
dog. And his father is like this important trade official person, and they're dealing with like these wildebeest men who they sort of treat as like lower class citizens.
Okay, so in this world we've established that like the animals are the people of the world.
And there's this hierarchy, and there's sorcery and magic is totally a thing, and they like worship multiple gods the way you do in a lot of fantasy things like Game of Thrones. The gods have titles, things like the gods of health, education, and welfare. The goddess of housing and urban development.
Oh my god.
Wildlife and fisheries, commerce, and homeland security.
That's amazing. The gods of homeland security.
But they have this real crisis developing in this world. Magic is running out of the world, and magic is what they use regularly. And
so it's like a precious resource.
It is exactly that. And they are running low, and they have to figure out a new source, or they are going to have severe problems with their, floating cities and things like that. Like, they have a real problem. And this warthog sorcerer comes forward, and she says she has this plan. which no one thinks is a good idea, but she manages to get some people around it to kind of bring forth an original source of magic. Things go so badly, so fast.
Wow.
Like, it's epic in the first issue, just how terribly things go.
So they're like, maybe we could do this. This is our alternative fuel, and it goes horribly wrong.
I'm not going to say that it fails necessarily, but it does not go the way they expect, and there are consequences they did not expect, for sure.
That's awesome.
And it's got fantastic character designs. Like I said, the Warthog Sorcerer looks so cool, and the Wildebeest men look amazing. There's this big hulking beast creatures that covered with scars, and like one of them has the title 7 Scars because that's like who he is, and he's like their leader. And they have these fantastic, I don't know if you've ever read like old like pulp stories or like old magazines. Like I feel like I read some of these in middle school where you'd be reading a short story and there'd be the first like 2-page spread basically where there's one illustration and then there's like just the text below it.
That does sound familiar. I think there might have been some older magazines like that.
Exactly. These comics pull a similar trick. Early in each comic, at least in the first 2, there's this 2-page spread that's basically like that. And the narration fits in those styles because you've got like this, suddenly the narration feels like you're reading like an old like adventure comic or an old adventure article or short story rather, and it's painted instead of like drawn like it's like really well done. It's beautifully painted with the whatever illustration they're doing. It's this amazing trick that they pull that never ceases to like blow my mind, and I spend like 5 minutes just staring at this page.
Art is just so good these days in comics,
so
guys. It's
amazing.
so amazing.
Like, again, we're really early in this comic. I almost didn't want to talk about it yet because there's so much that like hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's all set up still, but I really like where it's going, and I really am enjoying. I mean, it's a lot of things that I love. It's fantasy and magic and weird,
really cool looking creatures
and weird commentary on government or something. Like,
I mean, when you were saying that earlier, where it's like we need to find alternative resources for alternative fossil fuels, essentially,
it's this weird sort of satire, kind of not satire, but sort of commentary. Yeah, and I really enjoy where it's going. And Kurt Busiek never ceases to deliver. He's fantastic. Wow. So, and Benjamin Dewey just jumped to the top of my list. Like, he's amazing.
I mean, I'm going to scroll through all of these now and find what else this guy's worked on.
Yeah, so check it out. Autumnlands, Tooth and Claw from Image. First comic's just called Tooth and Claw, but you'll figure it out. Yeah,
you'll get there.
The internet exists. I trust you guys.
That is an awesome pull, and I definitely want to find out what terrible, terrible things have happened to this poor group of anthropomorphized animals.
Yes, well, and it's funny because like any group of political figures and things, there's always that squabbling and infighting. Even that stuff's fascinating. Even just to see these characters vying for like there's the owl sorcerer who sort of like doesn't like what the warthog guy is.
I like an owl sorcerer.
Like doesn't like what the warthog person is planning, but also doesn't want to be left out. Like it's really fun characters that are
awesome
that are playing out. So
all right, I'm definitely gonna check that out. Okay, well guys, that takes us into our main segment. Mike, kick things off.
The Spider-Mobile. Enough said.
I am so excited. You guys can't see this, but the smile on my face
is genuine.
I am... Oh man, I cannot wait to hear this.
We're going to do 2 comics. One is Amazing Spider-Man number 130, and then we're going to jump over about 30 issues.
Oh.
So, in Amazing Spider-Man 130 is when we get the debut of Spider-Man's car, the Spider-Mobile. Which
is the best and most useless car for a superhero.
See, I think we'll probably come back to this comic at another point, because there's a lot that happens in it that's amazing, but we're just going to focus on pretty much one important scene. Spider-Man was asked by a company to publicize their new non-polluting engine, so he works with the Human Torch for 5 weeks to build a car for them. The Human Torch does not understand why Spider-Man was elected to do this. It doesn't make sense.
So wait, the company just is like, you're like good with technology, you build this car.
You're popular, you represent this. And so they're building this car.
So now Spider-Man is doing branding for companies, essentially?
Yeah, he's tried to do that for years. He started as a wrestler.
That's true, he did.
He's always trying to capitalize on being Spider-Man.
Spider-Man has tried to sell out as many times as possible.
Yeah, because being Spider-Man doesn't pay.
It really doesn't.
But the Human Torch unveils to Spider-Man the final product, the Spider-Mobile. Guys, I encourage you to go to Google a picture of it, and we'll post one. We'll post
absolutely.
A bunch of them, probably. But it's a buggy with an open cabin. It is the dead of winter. It's Christmas. And it's got huge wheels with a Spider-Man pattern on the sides. It has Spider-Man's face on the hubcaps. Spider-Man's reaction is, now that's what I call a fiasco.
At least he has an accurate evaluation of that kind of vehicle.
But he says, considering the ideas we were working with, he admits Torch did a fine job. And the car has a spider signal. The spider signal doesn't come up very often, but he used to use it a lot. He would basically scare criminals. He has a flashlight on his belt, basically, that does a spider signal, like a symbol of his face on the ground or on a wall or something. So you see that and you go, what's going on? And then you turn around and Spider-Man's there and he's kicking you in the face with funny quips. You don't see it as often, but it lasted longer than you think it did.
Really?
It's still around. It just doesn't get used that often.
Exactly.
But there's one on the car, so we can flash it. There's also web shooters on the car, web cannons.
Web cannons? That's pretty awesome.
And it has an ejector seat. Spider-Man, again, does not know why that's there. But Torch says, it's an essential part of any hero's car. It's part of the style.
You have to have, and of course, the standard ejector seat as available in all of our car lines.
They go for a test drive. We are quickly reminded that Spider-Man grew up in New York.
Doesn't know how to drive a car.
He never learned to drive. Once at the point where they start driving on the sidewalk, Human Torch gets him to pull over and says, I will not be... This is the line.
You're endangering lives
He
right
literally
now.
says, I will not be an accessory to mass murder.
Oh my god.
So,
well, at least he addressed it.
yeah, but later on, Spider-Man's driving around. He got some tips from the Human Torch, and so he can drive.
I mean,
at least
does
to
the
some
Human
degree.
Torch... Should the Human Torch really be teaching anybody about
He's
etiquette?
He's a big hot rod guy.
Oh, that's
He
true.
is a really big... Like, the first thing we see of him in the first Fantastic Four comic is
I
him
don't know
working on
why
a
I even
car.
question that. Of course the Human Torch has hot rods and drives cars all the time. What was I thinking?
But later on, Peter's driving the car... Or sorry, Spider-Man is driving the car. A few cops see it. Like, he gets in a fight with Hammerhead, and off to the side is the car, and these cops look at it, and they're like... wondering what it is. One of them says it even looks like a refugee from a kiddie TV show. And Spider-Man hops in it and he drives away. He drives it to a party, parks outside. He goes there as Peter. He presses a button and the car converts. It looks like an old, like, 40s or 50s, like...
Sure, it can shapeshift as well?
Just into some, like, run-of-the-mill, like, not at all impressive-looking car.
Awesome.
And he's like, well, that does the job. In issue 141 is the next time we see it. And he's driving away from the cops. And due to... what we later learn is the acts of Mysterio, he accidentally drives it off a pier into the Hudson.
Oh no!
So he like bails out of it and swims away, and it stays there forever. Only it doesn't.
Oh my god. Mike, is this going to be a Stephen King Spider-Mobile comes back to haunt Peter Parker?
In issue 159, we see two men. Well, we see a mysterious figure tinkering with a chassis and an engine for a car, and this big muscly guy helping him put things together. Meanwhile, there's another mysterious figure who's smoking a cigarette in a long cigarette holder. It's probably the Kingpin. It's always the Kingpin.
Of course, yeah. He's the only well-known Marvel villain that constantly is smoking a cigar.
In a business suit.
Exactly.
I mean, probably it's him. But we reveal this car they're tinkering with. We pull back and we find out, yes, it's the Spider-Mobile.
Dun, dun, dun.
This mysterious figure has hired this other guy to tinker with this car and do something.
Is it the Tinkerer?
The benefactor says, incredible. If I didn't know what you had done to it, I would never imagine. And the other guy says, precisely my intention. And I assure you, once I put this machine into action, Spider-Man will never bother anyone again. The next issue is issue 160, which is called My Killer the Car.
Oh, yes.
You got there so fast,
Yes,
Jay.
I did. I wanted it so much.
Spider-Man's swinging around, he's looking for crime to fight, and he finds an honest-to-goodness fur thief. Like, there's actual people breaking in and stealing furs.
It happens.
And he drops in and fights them. The criminals are all wearing purple jumpsuits with, like, metal patches of armor and, like, dumb metal helmets with glass visors. Like every criminal in every 90s cartoon.
Just had outfits.
It's all like that. It's all that outfit.
You know why they had to steal so many furs? Because they invested so much money in these dumb outfits.
Yeah, they gotta get some profit back.
They gotta
somehow.
get some return on those outfits.
Also, these jumpsuits are not winter safe. Like, it's still snowy outside.
Just slipping, the metal just clanging against the ground.
One of them sets off a gas bomb, and Spidey's disoriented, and then we see the Spider-Mobile. And it drives at him, and he dives out of the way, and he notices, no, there's no driver in that thing. And it turns around, and it's going after him. And he's like, it's all right, and he tries to web out of the way, but something goes wrong. They don't fire, or he doesn't click them right. So whatever's happening, the web shooters are not firing. So he runs up the side of a wall, and he starts to lose his grip.
What?
Something is happening. He can't hold his grip on the wall. He manages to fall and hold onto a ledge.
So he's losing his abilities, his whole Spider-Manningness?
It seems that way. And he can barely hold on to the ledge. He's not strong enough now at this point to hold on to the ledge. Or he's losing, to some degree, at least his coordination in some way.
Right.
The car is ramming the building multiple times, trying to shake him off.
He's trying to Jenga that building down?
Trying to just knock him loose.
Wow.
And it starts to work. He loses his grip because he's not sticky.